But what I do see possibly happening here with Bitcoin is that now, since we do have that bullish divergence, it is very likely now that we will end up pushing above this general resistance and actually probably kicking into the next resistance, which is around $6,200 to $6,400. What's up, guys? So since our previous video, Bitcoin has made a lot of strides since it's up nearly 20%, and as right now it is nearing that $6,000 price range. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the updates and what I'm personally foreseeing for Bitcoin here, the different resistance levels I'm going to be looking at, and overall, if I'm bullish, right? Is this the bottom? Are we going to reverse and go back to 10,000? We'll talk about that in today's video. All right, let's get right into it. All right, guys, so right here you guys can see that we have Bitcoin's chart pulled up on its Bitstamp. I'm sorry, this is Binance actually. Let me change it out to Bitstamp. Bitstamp just offers a lot more data for us to work with. So let me just do that really quickly. And so as you guys can see from our previous update, when we were talking about Bitcoin, it was still down here at that general vicinity of around $5,000. So for us to already see it push up nearly 20% since that price range, it's quite tremendous in my opinion. What we had discussed about, just a little bit of a quick recap, I'll probably link the video in the description below or in the top, whatever. But basically what we had talked about in that video was that Bitcoin was starting to formulate what's known as a bullish divergence, right? You can see that on the RSI when essentially we have a low and then a higher low. That is typically a bullish signal for a temporary reversal, all right? So that's what I was looking for. Because we had essentially retested this bottom structure, which propelled Bitcoin to push up nearly almost 30% since then, right, from that bottom. Anyways, so let's get into some current price action. What do I see, right? What I had discussed about in that video was that I was looking for that 6,400 range. And that is where I think that we're going to have a lot of general resistance, right? So if we still manage to hit that, that still puts Bitcoin at nearly 7%. All right, so we still technically could have about a 7% move from here, but I don't know what the likelihood of that would be. All right, because we are already quite high. We've already had a lot of move towards the upside. But the reason I think that 6,400 range would be the general outlook is if we zoom out on the daily time frame. Notice where that lands us, all right? That lands us at our previous support structure down here when Bitcoin had performed that inverse head and shoulders, all right? This is where we had, essentially I pushed up into that 10,000 range because of this inverse head and shoulders. So this support right here is going to enact as a very strong resistance, all right? A very basic concept that I follow is that once we end up breaking support, this enacts as resistance, all right? So this is why I say 6,400 range would be the general area for us to take a look at, all right? And I think that if we end up touching on that area, and actually, yeah, let's make the candles green here. But I think that if we end up touching in that general area, that would allow us to pull in some liquidity, right? To tap into that liquidity area around 6,400 range. And at that point, we could end up seeing a continuation towards the downside. So that puts me into my perspective. Do I think that this is the bottom? All right, right now it is too soon to say. All right, I think that for us to officially bottom out, we are definitely going to have to see a lot more volume kick in, which currently we just don't have in terms of buyers, in my personal opinion. I could be totally wrong, right? I think, but I think that we would have to flip that general area. If we do end up flipping around 6,400 range and we get a consolidation above this general area, then I will change my outlook 100%. All right, I'm not in a hurry to FOMO into Bitcoin because I sold Bitcoin way up here, guys. I'm not in a position of trying to catch every single bottom. I'm in a position of trying to catch trends, and that is my overall outlook. But we do need to flip that 6,400 area in order for us to be bullish, because as of right now, that is going to enact as a strong resistance. And that is where we have a lot of liquidity at hand. If you notice back here, right? So if you get into like let's say the 1 hour, that is where we struggled to get above, right? Because Bitcoin had seen a huge stride in price action. And that 6,200 range was where we had we had failed to reclaim that support. All right, so I think that's why I'm also saying that 6,400 would be that general area for us to try to flip over. And that brings me to my conclusion. Am I bullish on Bitcoin? And as you guys probably can already tell from what I'm saying, the answer is no. On a macro basis, I'm still not bullish on Bitcoin. The reason I say that is because currently Bitcoin is still trending downwards. And one of my key fundamentals that I like to follow, and I always will, is that I like to follow trends, all right? Trend trading. I think this is single-handedly the easiest thing you can do when it comes to trading, is that you can just follow the trend. If you notice in the past, any single time Bitcoin has followed the trend, it ends up pushing quite high actually, right? So it doesn't matter if you end up catching the bottom, as long as you're catching the trend, you're in a position to make a lot of money. And currently the trend is still pointing towards the downside. And so I'm not in a position to FOMO just yet until we end up flipping that trend and we end up trending towards the upside. All right. Like I said before, I sold way up here, guys. And I'm, if I can still catch $7,000, I'd be more than happy about that. All right. Because I'd still would be in a really good long at that point. But again, that's why we have to flip that 6,400 resistance first before we can talk about those numbers. But if we do end up rejecting this general area around that 6,400 range, I think it's very likely, guys, that we could even go lower than what we expect. All right. Like I said before, the trend is still pointing towards the downside. So don't be surprised that if we do end up rejecting it and we end up seeing that 6,400 resistance once again. I'm sorry, support once again. All right. Because that's still in the works. It's still not out of the realm of possibility for us to see those lows once again around this area. And at that point, we could end up reversing and then uptrending from that point on. So this is why I say, guys, trend trading is the most important thing you can do. Drawing your trend lines, just because you're never going to be caught off guard and you're never going to catch bottoms. You're never going to sell tops, but you are going to be profitable. And that is at the end of the day, the most important factor to keep in mind here. So that is my general outlook, guys. I think that Bitcoin is still trending downwards, so I'm not necessarily bullish on a long-term basis, but I do think that I am bullish until we hit that general support, which is around, the resistance, which is around that 6,400 general area. And then once we tap into that, then it'll be a game of whether we end up crossing above that or if we end up going below and rejecting it. All right. So let me know your thoughts on the comment section below. What you guys think? Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? So far, we've been, pretty accurate so far. So far the divergence did play out. So far, we are on track to hit that 6,400 range. But now the question remains is, do we get above it or do we reject it? All right. So let me know in the comment section below. All right. And with that being said, let's, we still have about 7 minutes on the clock. So let me talk quickly about some altcoins. All right. The first one being, of course, the Ethereum. Let me pull it up really quickly here. So yeah, Ethereum, frankly, seems to be lagging behind Bitcoin. So right now, for the time being, for me, it just isn't a good time to buy altcoins. Altcoins to me seem to be laggards in this whole entire move up. I think a lot of people aren't really confident in crypto right now like they were back in December, January, right? Right now, we've already broken a lot of major support structures that previously we didn't. And so I think by longing altcoins, you're putting yourself in a bad position to expose yourself in a negative way. So for me, what I'm going to be personally doing is waiting until Bitcoin starts officially uptrending, right? And I think if Bitcoin can start uptrending, then once again, I think altcoins can do the same. And once altcoins get going, then it'll of course be the vice versa. Now you would be putting yourself in a position where you can make more money. So for the time being, I'd say, guys, if you are in altcoins, probably just stick to Bitcoin for the time being. Again, not financial advice, but I just know from my personal experience that as long as Bitcoin is downtrending, altcoins get hit the hardest. That's just how it's always been in the past. So with that being said, honestly, I probably won't look at any other altcoin for that matter. But for the time being, I've always said, altcoins are good trading coins, right? But during a bear trend, there can be some of the worst because you end up holding some pretty rough price action, right? So yeah, I guess I'll end it up there, guys. Let me know what if you guys have any more questions. If you guys agree, disagree, whatever. And with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next one.